Robinhood Radio presents award-winning author John Neufeld with Side Effects.
This week, we're going back down memory lane. There's no point in huffing and puffing until the people in Washington decide what they want to do. So, from the summer of 2018, this is what we wrote. Pigpen returns. No matter where Dear One walks, he stands in mud and mire and grime. It follows him. It follows his cabinet. It follows nearly everyone to whom he offers his hand in those too often seen photo ops of friendship. We used to think that dirt and filth and dishonesty just colored the Americans with whom he hung out. We were wrong. He has single-handedly brought to bay, as each day a different population is exposed to him, Mexican teenagers, Central American parents and children, Theresa May, national leaders in Central Europe, American men and women of goodwill on any side of a partisan line, and Angela Merkel. It matters not. He reaches out, the virus is transferred. We watch horrified as what made the United States a haven for refugees, a laboratory for growth and freedom, as it explodes before us. There is this to say: in addition to poisoning the air we breathe, the water we drink, the trade we struggle to increase, the very seawater that surrounds our shore, Dear One has exposed what's under the rocks on which our country is founded. What we had taught ourselves to believe, the honesty, the hard work, the sense of all for one, is revealed to be as corrupt as the governments, the parliaments, and the research laboratories of any other nation about which we read. We convinced ourselves we were ranked number one in the civilized nations of the world. It turns out we rank halfway down the slide, i.e., just like others of whom we had criticized and made fun for years. A new idea has invaded our mind. If Theresa May and Angela Merkel were men, would Dear One treat them so badly? Women mucking about in what Dear One clearly thinks is his sandbox, his and Putin's and Xi's. As a man, the Donald feels perfectly free to belittle two female leaders of a confused European scene. He told The Sun he had a simple solution to Brexit, and he had shared this amazing wisdom with May, but she chose to disregard his advice. How just like a woman. You can imagine the hearty hars shared between Donnie and Vlad next week. Realistically, international experts all agree there is room for improvement in NATO, as there is in the United Nations. Governments with borders and refugees on both sides of the Atlantic, who may once have been sympathetic to the conditions of hundreds of thousands of immigrants fleeing for their lives, their livelihoods, their beliefs, acted initially out of sympathy and humanitarianism. The waves of the needy overcame the genuine good feelings of nations trying to help resettle them. They simply were too much for the natives, and with them we have some sympathy too. But enough is enough. If the Donald is the grenade launcher for the world's benefit, let him throw himself atop the device to save the Western world rather than stand by watching it explode. One of the things we've learned in these past weeks is that our government does many things of which we are, one, not aware, and two, of which we would not approve had we known. The thousands of immigrants missing and separated from their family members on both sides of our Mexican border, the fact that even our own government admits it's unlikely that families will ever be completely and happily reunited on either side of the border, demonstrates, although we didn't need the show, that this administration is incompetent, acting on whims and why-nots, expecting no one to stand up to clear a throat and call it to account. The administration ignores court orders at will. Congress gives it a pass to save its own ass. We do believe that the Donald polls higher than Abraham Lincoln did. What we want to know is, when does Dear One's inexcusable and selfish and egoistic behavior alter to high crimes and misdemeanors? Imagine for a moment how the professional woman of today must shrink within herself when forced to greet the current President of the United States. It is the Donald, after all, who announced he was a germaphobe. Women in government in every country Dear One visits must want gallons of Purell, tons of mouthwash, and absolution from their religious leaders. How do we stop this yellow balloon? Here's a solution, simple but perhaps wonderfully effective. Just as local police squads are beginning to refuse to speak the name of a miscreant lest he or she benefit somehow from his or her notoriety, American television and cable news should stop giving Dear One free airtime to promulgate his horrors. True, some of Donnie's base might be annoyed. So what? They're incensed already. Now they can tune directly to Fox or Sinclair for their minute-by-minute fixes. Suppose those were the only sites on which the Donald appeared. We owe nothing to our foreign viewers, or to YouTube, or even to Twitter. If horrible things are going to continue to be visited upon our nation, let them come anonymously. After all, Congress and the Donald believe, or so it seems, that whatever they do is legal. Why highlight the disappointment, the despair of millions of Americans used to thinking their country is great? Resistance might even be more directed and more effective at the unknown. Many of our friends on both sides of the aisle have recently begun tuning out, freeing their psyches, devoting their time to worthwhile pursuits that are healthy and non-political. They report how much better they feel by not reading the newspapers or watching cable. Helping other people overcome problems and unfairnesses gives them a sense of value that could almost be called American. I'm John Neufeld.
All opinions on side effects are those of John Neufeld and do not represent necessarily the opinions of Robin Hood Radio, robinhoodradio.com, CATV6, or any of the employees, volunteers, or underwriters of Tri-State Public Communications.